I just understand you had dinner at the Lodge last night with some of your colleagues. Was Bridget McKenzie's future discussed, and was she present at that dinner?
No, she wasn't there. I mean, I dine with the Treasurer and the Deputy Prime Minister regularly. You'd expect me to.
Does Senator McKenzie need to resign?
Well, as you would have seen in the statement that was issued yesterday afternoon, last Friday I referred the matter of the Auditor General's report to the Secretary of Prime Minister and Cabinet to consider any matters there that were relevant to the Statement of Ministerial Standards. Yesterday there were further matters relating to disclosure that were reported, and I immediately referred those matters also for the consideration by the Secretary. That process is important, has been put in place on many of these occasions, simply to ensure that there's a consistency of application and assessment in relation to these issues, and it's the right thing to do for me to seek advice on those matters, and I'm awaiting that advice, and I'll await for that report.
Prime Minister, could you advise whether Senator McKenzie declared on her personal register of interest that is held by your office that she held a membership in the Well,
again, there's a process in place to look at all of those matters, and we'll report on those matters once the Secretary is in a position to. Well, I've allowed him to do it independently, and so I'm not putting any pressure on him one way or the other. I mean, he needs to do his job. That's why he's there. And I have confidence and trust in his abilities, and he will, I'm sure, get under this task, as he has now since last Friday, in a timely way, but he needs to assess it thoroughly and follow the proper process.
If that assessment finds that she was in breach of the ministerial standards, would you expect her to resign, given she's a Nationals Minister? You aren't in a position to sack her, are you?
Well, let me make 2 points. First of all, the reference of this matter last Friday to the Secretary of Department of Prime Minister and Cabinet was done with the full knowledge and acknowledgement of the Deputy Prime Minister. I also advised the Minister at that time. The referral yesterday of those other matters was done in concert with the Deputy Prime Minister, and he was fully aware of those matters at that time. And we have worked closely together on these issues, as you would expect us to, within a coalition. But I'm not going to prejudice the outcome of that report. I think that would be unfair to that process and to the Secretary. I'll let him do his job, and then I will look at that advice and take whatever actions are necessary.
Do you stand by the contention that you and your ministers have been making over the last week that she's done nothing wrong, that no rules have been broken?
Well, they were quoting the Auditor General's report.
Why does Bridget McKenzie still have a job, given how scathing that Auditor General report was?
Well, this is why these matters have been referred to the Secretary, and I'm following that process. I said at the time, as you'll recall, that I took these matters very seriously. I took the Auditor General's report very seriously, and we're acting on the recommendations of that report. And as to how that report and his findings reflected in any way on the Statement of Ministerial Guidelines, and indeed what were a very different set of matters, very different set of matters which were reported on yesterday, which was new information, then it was important that they were similarly referred, and so I'll await that advice.
Will the investigation into these matters look into any interactions between your office and the Minister's office?
This is a report on the Statement of Ministerial Guidelines and the matters I've referred to them, but there are no issues there.
What role did your office have in administering those grants and deciding where they went?
Prime Ministers and my office will refer matters that are put forward to us, advocacy for various programs from local constituents and members. That is the normal course of events. The matter and the program was administered by the Minister and Sports Australia, not the Prime Minister.
Why did it take until yesterday for you to say that Senator McKenzie had been referred to Mr Gaetjens, when I think on Monday you were happy to mention that you'd have referred it to Christian Porter, the Attorney General?
Well, that was in response to a question, and what I referred to yesterday was in response to inquiries from the media.
Last question.
There was reports this morning that one club was given $8,000 through this program. There's no, that club has been placed into liquidation and no one knows where the money went. Sports Australia is trying to claw that back. Are you concerned about the operation of this grants program if things like this are occurring?
What I'm pleased about is that hundreds of sporting bodies all across the country who put forward eligible projects were able to get support for those projects, and that they have a government that cares about the sporting infrastructure in communities. Because I've got 2 daughters. I don't want them changing in the car or out the back of the shed. I want them to have access to sporting facilities in our community like the boys do. And sporting infrastructure is central to the functioning of Australian communities. That's where people come together, and that sporting infrastructure engages participation of people of all ages to ensure that they can live healthy lifestyles and be functional and part of their communities. And this program was designed to support that infrastructure that enables them to do the wonderful work that they do. The Auditor General's report has been completed. The government is following up and actioning the recommendations of the Auditor General's report, and any of the other matters that you've raised, I have referred properly to the Secretary of the Department of Prime Minister and Cabinet for review in relation to the Statement of Ministerial Guidelines, and I will await for him to complete that process properly. But if you excuse me now, I have some family matters I have to tend to. Thank you very much.